This is the warm-up for Lesson 14, Formulas and Functions, Day 2. So take a second and do these three problems. The first problem, solving for y. We want to get everything except for y on one side of our equation and y by itself on the other side of the equation. So we can add 8x to both sides. We can also add 2 to both sides because we don't want our x's or our constants on that same side. So they cancel out over on my left side. We're left with 4y. On our right side, we've got 8x and negative 14 and 2 make negative 12. Now we'll divide by 4 and we get y equals 2x minus 3. Solve and graph the next problem. It's an inequality. We've got parentheses, so we'd like to get rid of those. We'll distribute this negative 1. That turns into negative 8n plus 2 is less than 3. And then we'll have to distribute the 10 through, plus 10 minus 30n. So if I look at this, if I move this negative 30n to the left, I'll have to add it, and that will make a positive n. So that's what we'll do. So we'll add 30n to both sides. So if I'm getting my n's on the left side, I want to get my constants on the right side, so I'll subtract 2 from both sides. Those will simplify out, and 30n minus 8n will make 22n. I can combine all these terms here, and so 3 plus 10 minus 2 is going to make 11. So that's equal or less than 11. Divide by 22, and we get n is less than, what is that, 1/2. Our graph of this, we're at 1/2. We don't have the equal sign, so we're going to go open circle, and we're eating the number, so it's less than, so we go to the left. Our last warm-up problem. It's a compound inequality because we have two inequality symbols. We're going to try and get k by itself in the middle of this problem between the two inequality symbols. We're going to work our way backwards through our order of operations. We're multiplying by negative 6 and we're adding 10, so we're going to subtract 10 first from all three sides when it's a compound inequality. Negative 48 is less than negative 6k less than negative 24. Divide by a negative 6, divide by a negative 6, divide by a negative 6. When we divide by a negative, don't forget to reverse your inequality symbols. We've got a k now. Negative 48 divided by negative 6 is positive 8. Negative 24 divided by negative 6 is positive 3. Oh, sorry, that's positive 4. And so now we notice that 8 doesn't come before 4 in our number line. So we're going to rewrite it. 4 and 8, put our k in the middle, and now pay attention to what we're eating. Between the k and the 4, we were eating the k, so we're going to continue to eat the k. Between the k and the 8, we're eating the 8, so we're going to continue to eat the 8. So now when we do this, we've got our numbers in order. 4 and 8. We are greater than 4 because we're eating the k, so that's an open circle going to the right. We are less than 8 because we're eating the 8. Open circle going to the left. All real numbers greater than 4 and less than 8. We'll skip homework questions. So this is just a continuation of Lesson 13, solving. we're going to work our way backwards through our order of operations. So this problem says we want to solve this for L. And so we've got an L out here. So we look at this L. What's immediately happening to the L is it's immediately L is being multiplied by r and by pi. It's also, we can see that it's being added with pi and by r squared. So we're going to work our way backwards through the order of operations. So we're going to subtract the pi and the r squared from both sides. Subtract pi r squared from both sides. On our left side we have s minus pi r squared. None of that stuff combines. None of it has the same variables. And now we've got that equals just pi r L. And we're trying to solve for L here. Trying to solve for L. So what's happening to the L? It's being multiplied by pi and r. So what's going to undo that? Dividing by pi and r. Divide by pi and r. And some of you guys get a little bit scared because this doesn't look very nice. But this answer is just s minus pi r squared over pi r. Now we can't simplify the pi and the r because there's an addition and subtraction sign with that. So we've got to leave it alone. If that was multiplied by s, then we might be able to simplify into that, but it's not, so we have to just leave it as is. So all we're doing is working our way backwards through our order of operations. This is a positive pi r squared. We're going to subtract it. And then we say, oh, what else is going on to our L? It's being multiplied by pi and r, so we divide by pi and r. That's all we're doing. Rewriting as rewrite the equation so that y is a function of x. Remember, that's just a fancy way of saying solve for y. If y is a function of x, solve for y. If x is a function of y, solve for x. Whatever comes first, that's what we're solving for. So we're trying to eventually get this to say y equals down here. So we've got a fraction. Uh-oh. So what are we going to do? We're going to multiply by this fraction. So we'll multiply our whole left side by the denominator and the whole right side by the denominator. When we multiply the left side, these 2's will simplify and we'll be left with 1 times the quantity y plus 5. But I've got to take this 2 to the 6x because it's not, the 6x isn't in the parentheses with the y and the 5. So what we'll get is 1 times the quantity y plus 5, because the 2 is simplified, and 2 times 6x makes 12x, and 2 times 4x makes 8x. Now I don't really need this 1 here. I just showed it to you because whatever's on the numerator goes out in front, but if we multiplied by a 1, if we distributed that 1 through, it wouldn't change our problem. So I'm going to erase it right there, just trying to show it to you. We should know that by now. We're trying to solve for y, so what's happening to our y? It's being added by 5, it's being added by 12x, so we can subtract 12x from both sides. We don't want that 5 there either, so we can subtract 5 from both sides as well. Those both leave the left side. We're left with y on our left side. What's 8x minus 12x? Negative 4x minus 5. Solve that equation for y. Solve and graph. A little review of inequalities. We should be pretty proficient at this by now. We can look at this and say, okay, well, what's happening? Now, sometimes we get confused. We're adding 5 to the x here. That's what's happening. We're adding 5. We're also multiplying by negative 1/2 to the x. So what can I do? I can undo adding 5, working our way backwards through our order of operations. Those will simplify. Negative 3 plus 5 makes positive 2. And now what's going to undo multiplying by 1/2? Well, because this is all we have left, we could do it 2 different ways. We've got negative 1/2 x less than or equal to 2. We could do it one way, which is saying, okay, we'll just multiply by our reciprocal. What's the reciprocal? It's negative 2, negative 2, and we get we can get these simplify, and we get x, and when we multiply by a negative, we would need to remember to reverse the inequality symbol, and that will make -4. So that's one way. The other way is to say, okay, I want to get rid of my fraction, so I'm going to multiply by 2, and I'll get -x is less than or equal to 4, and then divide by -1, divide by -1, x is greater than or equal to -4. So you get the same answer whichever way you do it. The graphs, we're at -4, we're greater than or equal to -4, so because of the equal sign we go solid circle, filled in circle, and greater than goes to the right. Our homework today is lesson 14, Formulas and Functions, day 2.